Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast. Ozcast. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
All right, everyone, welcome back for another deep dive with me. And as always, I've got my expert here to help us make sense of things.
Hey, everyone.
So today we are looking at, Spain and where they stand on the war in Ukraine.
Okay.
And, for this deep dive specifically, we're going to be looking at a clip from a speech by Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez in Kyiv. And, I think what's really interesting here is it's not just words of support from Spain.
Yeah.
They're putting their money where your mouth is. So let's get into it. So to kick things off, Sanchez announced that Spain is going to be giving €1 billion every year for the next 10 years to bolster Ukraine's military.
Wow.
That's a big chunk of change, right?
Yeah, that's a huge commitment. And it really shows how seriously Spain is taking this conflict. I mean, €1 billion a year for 10 years, that's a significant portion of their defense budget.
Yeah, and it really kind of puts them up there with, the other big supporters of Ukraine in terms of, actual financial aid.
Absolutely. It's a concrete way of showing their support. It's not just lip service. They're putting their money where their mouth is.
Exactly. And it's not just about the money either.
Yeah.
Sanchez also stressed that Spain is, firmly with the EU in enforcing those sanctions against Russia.
Yeah, right. And that's really important because, it shows a united front within the EU against Russia's actions, and also means that Spain is willing to, potentially take an economic hit themselves.
Yeah.
To maintain that pressure on Russia.
Exactly. Solidarity.
Exactly.
But okay, so this is where things get really interesting.
Yep.
Spain is also making some pretty big moves to diversify its energy sources, so they're not so reliant on Russia anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And they're looking to North America, primarily, the U.S. and Canada, to fill that gap.
Yeah, that's a smart move strategically. I think in the short term, it definitely reduces Russia's influence and their leverage,
Right.
economic. But then in the long term, it also gives Spain and the EU more energy security and makes them less vulnerable to, disruptions.
Yeah, we've seen how important that is right now, right?
Exactly.
And of course, it's not without its challenges. Switching energy suppliers like that, requires new infrastructure, new contracts, and that all takes time and money.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There are logistical hurdles to overcome, but I think the long-term benefits outweigh the short-term costs.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the economics. Spain has also really stepped up in terms of humanitarian aid.
Oh, absolutely.
They've taken in the 4th highest number of Ukrainian refugees in the entire EU.
That's incredibly significant.
Yeah, so, they're not just talking the talk, they're walking the walk.
Exactly. And what's even more impressive is that they've set up this dedicated Ukrainian hub in Spain to help these refugees, integrate into Spanish society.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so it's a joint effort between the Spanish and Ukrainian governments, and it offers a whole range of services like, language classes, job training, healthcare, legal aid, all sorts of things to really help these refugees get back on their feet.
It's pretty amazing, right? To be able to do that for so many people.
It really is. It shows a real commitment to helping those in need.
Yeah, it's inspiring.
Yeah.
And, another thing that Sanchez brought up in his speech that I thought was really interesting was he drew this parallel between Spain's own journey to join the EU back in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
And the aspirations of Ukraine and Moldova today.
Right. And I think that was a very clever move on his part because it subtly signals Spain's support for Ukraine's eventual EU membership, without explicitly saying it. And it also kind of reminds everyone of the transformative power of the EU, how inclusion can lead to stability and prosperity.
Absolutely. They're speaking from experience, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so let's take a step back and just kind of recap what we've talked about today.
Okay.
So Spain's support for Ukraine really is multifaceted, right? It's not just one thing. It's military aid. It's upholding those sanctions. It's diversifying their energy sources away from Russia, and it's providing significant humanitarian assistance.
Absolutely. And it really highlights the complex interplay between domestic and international considerations,
Right.
because on one hand, Spain has its own economic interests to consider, but on the other hand, they're also committed to supporting democracy and international law.
Right. I mean, it's a tough balance, isn't it?
It is, and I think it's a question that we all need to think about. How do domestic factors like public opinion and economic concerns influence a country's foreign policy decisions?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and one that I think we could probably spend another whole episode talking about.
Maybe we should.
Maybe we should, but for now, I think we've given everyone plenty to think about. So thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next time.
See you later.
Bye.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.